Welcome, football fans, to another thrilling episode of From the Hip, the podcast where we shoot straight from the hip and tackle the hottest topics in the NFL. I'm your host, Anthony Rodriguez, and we're back with a recap of all the action from Week 5 in the NFL. Joining me today are my co-hosts, Kory Thompson and Justin Rodriguez. Justin is remote today, so we'll just have to look at his lovely photo. Say hello, gentlemen.
How you doing? How
Good
you doing?
evening, everyone. Good evening.
Welcome
Let's
back.
get
Welcome
it.
back to another episode, y'all.
Week 5 brought us some jaw-dropping moments, incredible plays, and a few surprises. And no one saw that coming. Whether you were glued to your TV, streaming on your devices, or catching the highlights, we've got you covered, man. So today, we want to go down the list. So in today's episode, we'll break down the key matchups, spotlight, stand-up performances, and dive into the controversies that all the fans are talking about this week. Gentlemen, shall we get right into it?
Yes, sir.
Let's go.
Okay, so I think we already went over the Bears game, so I don't think there's real reason for us to rehash into the Bears game, shall we? So let's
Correct.
bring up the rest. Let's go straight to Jacksonville versus Buffalo. Probably the upset of the week. Jacksonville came in at 2-2, with Buffalo walking in at 3-1, hot off of a hot victory over Miami. Well, at the end of the game, going into London, Jacksonville came out victorious, 25-20. Gentlemen, shall we start with this one?
Yes, sir. Let's get to it.
Let's go. Let me hear it.
So I'll take over at first. First of all, this is clearly the upset of the week. Well, like we said on our past episode on Saturday, Marcellus is jumping up and down in his boxes in his house because he's gonna say that he was right and we were wrong. I'll be first to admit, London is Jacksonville's second home. There is no denying that. Back to back weeks, back to back great performance weeks from the team.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not act like this is a fully healthy Buffalo team that they went against. Buffalo's defense is missing both their cornerbacks, and Matt Milano went down. So
Yeah.
I look at it as like, yeah, you guys won, but at full strength, you're not beating this Buffalo team. That's the reason why I went the way I went when we chose the winners of this team. Even besides that, T Law had a great game, 315 passing, one TD and 31 rushing yards. But I think the X factor, Anthony, you was exactly correct. Is Travis Etienne, man. He was the X factor in this game, and he definitely caused his team to come out with the victory.
I'm glad you guys finally realized that I actually know a little something about this game.
You know a little something. You know a little something.
I mean, I I don't really think it's the upset of the week because Jacksonville is a good team. They've been playing
Oh,
well all season. They just haven't won some games. They've been in close games with a team like KC. I mean, Buffalo did come over after 2 days. So they came in on what, a Friday? You're facing jet lag, a whole nother different hour system you're playing on. So they look like zombies going out there. Diggs and Davis both came up and showed out. They performed. They both had over 100 yards with a TD each. ETN was the X factor, having 136 rushing yards with a TD. Ridley looked great. He had 122. And then the Bills, you can't rely on Josh Allen's arm all game long. The Bills had a total of 29 rushing yards. That's not going to cut it. That's really not going to cut it.
it's a pretty good
Um,
arm.
it is a pretty good arm, but still, if you can set up the run, it opens up the pass.
So I agree.
So I think that they need to work on their running game. Maybe they need to do a lot of more zone running or whatever the case is to help them out, so they can continuously win games and not just squeeze by in certain games and blow out some other teams.
Well, I agree. Um, but I knew this was going to happen. This is the reason I called it. In London, they are undefeated, and they feel comfortable playing there. When I looked at it, I knew that Travis Etienne was just going to run all over him, and boy, did he do it. 136 yards on 26 carries with 2 TDs. And um, what did surprise me though was the quarterback. I did not see Trevor Lawrence performing like he did. I thought this was going to be a run heavy game, run very heavy game, and good defense. What I got was Trevor Lawrence performed well. He threw for 315 yards with a TD. He found Ridley 7 times and Kirk 6 times. So he spread the ball around, which to me that could be a little bit of the the actual injuries that were happening to Buffalo as the game progressed because it seemed like every couple of minutes somebody went down. So that could be a possibility of that, of why he was able to do so well. But I don't want to take it away from Trevor Lawrence. They played a really good game. Their their actual defense was fantastic. And I don't want to take away from what he was able to accomplish on this day. Okay. To me, the Bills had a problem because they have a lack of a run game right now. I'm not seeing the running game performing what it should be. And they have so many injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that they're punishing the defense by throwing the ball as much as they are and leaving the defense to have to be on the field as much as they are. There's no ball control. If they ran the ball more, we'd get them off the field more. We'd keep the offense on, and I think they would last longer. So they've got to do something about that going forward. Otherwise, this is not going to be the team that we all hope that we're going to see.
But also with running the ball, you get to manage the clock. And
Yeah,
that's another important factor that I think they're missing out on is being able to manage that clock.
agreed. It's huge. It's huge, especially with what's going on right now with the other teams. And they're gonna get a little bit better of a game next week. They play the Giants, so you know they get the break that they probably needed in the Giants. But Jacksonville's got a tough game. Jacksonville's going against the Colts next week, so we're gonna see if that's just a fluke on their part or like whether or not they're gonna stay as strong as they played against the Bills. All right.
Let's see what happens.
Mhm.
So let's see, where are we now?
Houston,
Houston
Atlanta.
versus Atlanta.
I mean, you know, Atlanta
Well, go ahead,
Atlanta
Kory.
won
Let me
this
bring you in.
game, man. I'll take it. Atlanta won this game, man, 21-19. That was a shocker to me. I didn't expect this with the way CJ Stroud's been playing and that Texans team's been playing. Stroud looked good again. He almost had 250 with a TD. Pierce had 66 yards. Dalton Schultz is the new receiver to step up the tight end. He had 7 catches for 65 yards with a touchdown. But who, Ritter, who,
I guess he
28 for
got tired of me calling
37.
him Rotor Rooter.
Yeah, 28 for 37, 329 with a TD. Bijan and Tyler both had 40 yards rushing, and Kyle Pitts showed up finally. 7 catches, 87 yards, and Drake London, 6 catches, 78 yards. This was a game just determined on who wanted it more. It was all heart. It was heart and determination. And the Falcons came up and they did what they had to do. And also, they are 3-0 at home currently.
Yeah,
Indeed.
I agree with that. Dalton Schultz definitely showed up, but we expected that when he came in from free agency from the Dallas. So I expect him to show up. It was just a matter of when and where. Um, when you go, I blame the Houston offense in this game because they got to the red zone multiple occasions. They were down there, but it's just that you can't score, and that's what killed them this game because I believe that their kicker had like 4 field goals, 4 to 5 field goals this game, if I'm not mistaken.
He
So that's
did. He
yeah, that's
did.
like 4 to 5 red zone opportunities where CJ Stroud, who strives in the red zone, I blame the Houston offense because that's exactly why they couldn't score in the red zone. They forcing the field goals, getting the 3 points, 3 points, 3 points. It's only a matter of time before Atlanta comes back on the field, and they're gonna run that clock out. Like I said, they are running powerhouse, man. So
So would you
It's very
blame?
limit. It's very limited opportunities when you play a team like Atlanta.
So in that scenario, are you going to blame the offensive coordinator, the actual the
Well,
players, or would you
well,
just say that Atlanta's defense was just that good at that moment
no.
in the red zone?
In the moment, yes, Atlanta's defense was good in the red zone. Remember, they coming in. I believe what is the record now? 1-3 or 2-3.
3-2
So they're
right
three and
now.
two now. Yeah, right now. Okay, so I don't. Atlanta's defense in the red zone was exactly what it needed to be, but I also believe this was an off game by CJ because the performance he's been giving us doesn't match up to how he played in this game. Yes, he moved the ball around. Yeah, still got 250, but in the red zone is where he strives, and then he just wasn't there.
I actually disagree with that. I think the CJ Stroud in the loss still impressed me because this is a very young man who's come in, and we've asked, we as a collective have asked a lot of CJ Stroud stepping in, and he has delivered. Still has yet to throw a pick. He's been uh, as solid a quarterback as you could ever ask for from a rookie. He's poised, he's professional. He took a tough loss, but that comes with the growing pains of being a quarterback. Um, the credit really goes to Ritter, who probably had the best game of his career. And I don't want to take anything away from him because he played well. He passed the ball to 10 different players, finally getting Kyle Pitts into the season. Welcome to the NFL, Kyle. Okay, because he was unimpressive. But this 3-2 record, I still think is false. I don't think this team is as good as their record says. And I am always the person who says the exact opposite. I always say you are what your record says you are. If you're a bad team, it's going to show at the end. If you're a 2-10 team, but you've had a bunch of moral victories, you're a losing team. This is a 3-2 team. They are above. I think they've had a strength of schedule that's been a little bit laxed, which is why the record is what it is.
I mean, they
But
played the Panthers, the Packers, the Lions, the
that's my
Jags,
point. That's my
and now
point.
the
They haven't played
Texans. Yeah,
anybody. They
yeah.
haven't played anyone. They have a true test next week when they go against Washington. Washington is one of those teams that seems to be extremely tough. They lose because they're a losing team, but they lose to really good playing teams. While Houston, on the other hand, they've got another tough one. They've got New Orleans next week, and New Orleans, um,
They just look like the all-star team when they
yeah,
play
they look like the
New
Drew
England. They
Brees New
just
Orleans this week. We'll get to that game, but or maybe
Oh
not. We
yeah.
might skip over it because
No,
it
no, no,
wasn't even
no.
worth
We get
talking
into
about.
that game. I want to say something for you. I want to say something for you. We get into that
But
game.
New Orleans, they playing really well, and that's going to be a very tough team. All right, so let's move to the next one. And when I say let's move to this one, you know, we already knew what was going down. This was the no-brainer of the week. This was I only have $100. I'm putting it on Detroit, and they delivered. Detroit did what they did. Detroit might be the scariest team in the NFC, including San Francisco, who's still my odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. But Detroit's scary, and I
And
think
you got to add the
everybody.
Eagles.
I think they're scarier than the Eagles.
and I agree on that. I
Yeah,
100% agree on
Detroit's
that.
built really well, man. They're scary. They're very, 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 very scary. Okay. Carolina is not as bad as this record. They're 0-5, but they're not this bad. Kory, I see your look, but they're not this bad. I think they're unfortunate. They're gonna come and they're gonna have a couple wins this year. It was not gonna come against Detroit.
How are you going to
Detroit's
say
that
that?
good.
They sold out their team. They gave away DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, CMC last season. They gave all three of those big player makers on their offensive
Mm-hmm.
side. They
I
gave
hear
them
you.
away. They've been trading people. They got rid of
I didn't say they were a playoff
Baker.
team, Kory. I'm not saying they're a playoff team. I'm just
They're
saying they're
not.
not this bad. They haven't
They
gotten a win
are.
yet. They haven't gotten a win yet. They're not this bad.
Well,
They're
they're in the
not.
middle of they're in the middle of a rebuild too.
Yeah, they're
They're
definitely in the
rebuilding
middle
that
of a
team.
rebuild. They're just not this bad. They're not this bad. They just ran into some tough teams, including Detroit. You know, it's just the way I feel about them. But um, Detroit does have me a little worried because they do have a couple of injuries that got me a little bit worried. Emmanuel Mosley is out next week. St. Brown didn't play this past game, and he's questionable for the next. They're going against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is another team that I think is overproducing. I don't think they're as good as their record shows.
I agree on that.
Um, Carolina is going to take another loss. They're going to go 0-6 because they're going against Miami. But that's for the Thursday show. We'll talk about that on Thursday. But their record is going to stay. Look, they just have a tough schedule, man. They got a really tough schedule. That's where we got to go. So that leads us into Tennessee, Indianapolis. Another game that they came in is two middle of the road games. I really don't want to go too deep into this, but we have to look at this because at least we had Jonathan Taylor coming back for this game. So that's what made a lot of people look
Is
into it.
that is that we got to talk about the glass sculpture of a quarterback the Colts have. So we
Oh yeah,
definitely
We
got to
got
talk
to
about
talk
that
about
he
too.
is.
the
Yeah,
emergence of
this is
Zach
his second
Moss.
injury in what 3 weeks.
This is
He's
3
going to
weeks,
be
so
out
he's
for
made
several weeks
glass.
now. Yeah,
So,
and on top of that, it looks like Zach Moss doesn't want to give up the starting role to Jonathan because
and let's talk about that because in my opinion, I don't pull Zach Moss. I leave Zach Moss right in
not
that
after
starting position.
165 yards and 2 TDs and 2 receptions.
Yeah, multiple weeks. This is not just the first week he's done this.
Mm-hmm.
He's took over this offense. He is the offense on that team. So
Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't pull him in no situation. Jonathan Taylor needs to literally come in on 5 touches and make me 200 yards for me to put him in the starting position.
would you
Five
Let's
trade him to
touches.
somebody? Would you trade
no. I'm
Five
him
saying
right
touches.
no. I
before
would
the
not
trade
trade.
deadline?
No, I would not. I would not trade. No, you just gave me the extension, so no, I wouldn't trade him. Keep him.
Okay.
Get your workload off him. Make him a third down back. But I don't see him giving up. I don't see Zach Moss giving up the starting role anytime soon. If he keeps
You,
playing the way
you
he's playing, he's not going nowhere.
you can't pay someone that kind of money to be a third down back. You paying
That's my
someone that
point.
kind of money to be a featured back.
So, would
So
you trade Zach Moss while his stock is extremely high right now?
I would trade Jonathan Taylor instead of Zach Moss. Jonathan Taylor's had these nagging injuries. I would
Last year
trade
he was
him.
no so.
Yeah, I would trade him now. Get what you can. Get some draft picks. Build a team. Maybe get some protection for your quarterback, or maybe add a compliment to what's their wide receiver over there? Oh man,
Pittman,
isn't it? Yeah, Michael Pittman. Or
Pittman.
get a good corner or a safety to add into the mix to help you on your defensive side. That's what I would do, and make Zach Moss your featured back, man. The guy's been killing it. Don't give up somebody who's been killing it right now just because Taylor's back.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Indianapolis again next week doesn't get any better. Jacksonville coming fresh off the win over the Bills, and Tennessee has Baltimore, who just lost their game, and they're going to be really upset about that because they shouldn't have lost that game, but they did.
Mm.
So, uh, two really tough games, especially because I have not seen. Last week we saw a good game by King Henry, and this week, where was he?
Yeah.
My point
Okay,
exactly.
And
and
I think
in
that's
fact,
twice this season he hasn't
yeah,
shown
in
up to
fact,
play.
it seems like they're going more the committee over there, so that could affect fantasy players, which that'll lead me into later when we talk about later. Okay, so next game, New York Giants against the Miami Dolphins. This one hurt, but 1-4 Giants came in against 4-1 Miami. Well, 1-3, 3-1, now 4-1 Miami Dolphins. Um, Another score that this is another one of those games that we knew what was going to happen. It was just how bad was it going to be, and it was pretty bad. 31-16. The score doesn't even show what actually went down. This was never a game. This was never a game.
No, it absolutely wasn't.
You know, if you look at just the score, if you missed the game and you said, "Oh, well, the Giants held their own," you know, they lost, but no, this was never a game at all. There's nothing positive to say about the Giants at this point. Even the quarterback has a neck injury for his second time in his career. Um, the only thing worth mentioning about this game, there's something that we should worry about, is Miami has two questionable running backs going into next week. Because forget about this game. We're not even talking about this game anymore. You know, that's how
I
bad it
believe he was play. I believe he was placed on IR. And, the starting running back, though, I forgot his last name.
HA,
Yeah,
the
was.
HR.
It
I
new
believe he was
HA?
starting.
placed on IR.
Yes,
I believe
it's
HR
his.
was playing on IR today.
Yeah, it's his knee, and I heard he's going to be out for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I don't
And
know
He's
what
gonna
kind
be
of
Mostard
out for a
injury he
is
week.
still
sustained.
questionable.
Couple of weeks. Yeah, I don't know
You
what
know?
kind of injury he sustained.
And
I mean,
you still got Jeff Wilson now. You still, oh my God, this team's not even gonna be able to run the ball.
I
Yeah,
mean,
but you know
Got
what?
nobody.
With their passing game, do they really even need to run the ball? They're also going against Carolina next week. So
you still need to run the ball. You still have to
Yeah,
have
you
that
still need to run the
factor.
ball because it's like
I
I
might
said
be able to
last
run for
time.
this team and they'll be okay.
Like I said, is that you still need to be able to run the ball because then you start it's the ability to cheat, and that's the thing with this
Hmm.
whole no running back situation. Teams that don't have factors on both receiver and running back, I could cheat, and it just takes one defensive coordinator to start cheating. Because who's gonna run that ball? That's the question. Like, you might well go put the
Yeah,
backup quarterback back there.
you're going to put a nickel. You put them in nickel all the time against that defense. Now you have
Mm-hmm.
what 5-6 corners out there plus the two
Shit,
safeties or whatever. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I'm running I'm running Thursday Sky all week. I know
Yeah,
what's going over the top.
but I will say this for a bright note for the Giants. We got to see Darren Waller emerge for the first time this season, 86 yards, 8 catches. You know, I'm a big advocate of him because he's an ex-Raven, and I think he's a promising tight end. So we got to see that. But on the
Yeah, but
other
who's going
end,
to throw to them next week?
exactly. But on the other note, Miami hit the quarterback 14 times. They had 7
Mhm.
sacks. Daniel Jones has been running for his life the last 2-3 games
He got
straight.
sacked 10 times last week.
Yeah,
In
So
Seattle, yeah.
what's
you
that?
can't.
17 sacks in 2 weeks? Come on, man. This team needs to invest in an offensive line. It's tragic what's happening over there. There's nothing positive to say about the Giants. They have 9 players that are questionable for next week. I think they should just concede the game now. They're going against the Buffalo Bills. You know what I mean? They should
And
just
after they
give
coming off
up the
that
game
loss, they're
right
gonna
now. If I'm a Giants fan,
come out.
which I am, I'm in a state of limbo as to how could you root for this team right now? There's nothing positive about this team. You can't talk about the coach. You can't talk about the offensive line, the defensive line. You can't talk about the secondary. The um your quarterback has not looked good. Well, he's not going to look good if your running back is never in the game. Barkley's never playing anymore. This team is lost. Okay, so
Agreed.
I mean, this season is lost, which also leads me into the next game. And if it wasn't bad enough of last week, New England, we were talking about them taking the worst loss of the Belichick era. Well, guess what? That just got beat again because they just took the worst loss of the Belichick era in 34 to zip to New
Hmm.
Orleans. And this New Orleans, we're not talking about the Cowboys, the Eagles, San Fran, Miami. This was New Orleans. This is not one of the big powerhouses. How bad is New England? And Kory, does Belichick have to worry about his job?
I don't think Belichick has to worry about his job because he's a proven quarterback. And I feel that Kraft and everyone knows that they don't have the pieces. They don't have really good receivers. I mean, they do have Juju, but Juju seems to not be the Juju of old anymore. Mac Jones is not the guy. He's an Alabama quarterback. To me, most times Alabama quarterbacks have never worked out. I mean, Now, what I do want to say is somebody in here has been talking very, very bad about Derek Carr.
Oh yeah, I have.
18 for 26, 183 yards with two TDs. He managed the game. Mac Jones, once again, 12 for 22, 110, two interceptions, and he gets benched again.
Mm-hmm.
This to me is
Hold on,
looking
hold on, hold
like
on.
the.
Let me interject. You ready?
Mm.
I still don't like Carr. I said it.
Ag-
I'm not afraid to say it. Carr should have stepped out last week. He's got the shoulder injury. If he would have sat, his team would have won last week, or he would have won that game. He would have gotten healthy, which he's healthy now. He's had a week since then. He looked good. I watched those passes. I was waiting to see him do more checkdowns. He wasn't. He was throwing the ball 20, 30 yards down the field. He was throwing the ball, which means the shoulder is better. But he shouldn't have played on the week where he was hurt. That's my point. I
But
don't like
my 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 question is, can y'all really say that he's doing good when he's going against New England?
You're seeing flashes. Like I said, he just managed the game. He's doing what he
Mm-hmm.
needs to do. Kamara had 22 touches, 80 yards with a TD. So that's good to see Kamara coming back last week from the suspension, not really doing much as far as offense, just getting a lot of checkdowns. But now you're seeing him run the ball. Shockingly, Olave only had 2 catches, 12 yards with a touchdown. That was shocking. But
He
we
got his
did see
first
Honey
touchdown of the
Badger.
season.
Yeah. We did see Honey Badger with the 27-yard pick six. I really did like that. I'm a defensive guy. I'm a fan of Honey Badger. I don't think KC should have ever let him go. They should have held on to him. But I think this New England team is in deep waters and in some big trouble.
Yeah.
And I think Mac Jones's job at the end of the season is on the line if he
I don't
doesn't
think
turn
he's going
this
to have a
around.
job at the end of the season, and I would, I would, uh, I would guess that Belichick better be really careful. He may not have a job. You can rely on
Well,
your record for so long.
well, going back to that Belichick, I read on something earlier that the question is because he's both the GM and the head coach of that team.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have him step down as GM? Is my question.
No.
Because there's a lot of talks like that because they're saying that he doesn't know what he's doing with his offense or his personnel. So
Oh, I don't.
that's what they're saying. They're saying that he's not making football decisions. So do you have him step down and just stay as the head coach? And if not, what do you do?
Well, if it's me, um, if this continues, I think you may want to have that conversation of him sitting down. But I actually like what he's done as a GM, although I don't think it's fair to the players because he does view players as commodity.
Yeah,
Mm.
He's
because
very
we
quick
could
to dismiss players, and
exactly
my
because we
issue
all
with
know.
that is you don't build dynasties, even though he built a dynasty, but that he was blessed because he had Brady. You won't always have Brady. Tomlin has built dynasties without having the benefit of having a guy like Brady.
Well, he had Big Ben. I
Well,
mean,
Big Ben is not Brady.
yeah,
my
no,
my
but he had
my
Big Ben and great weapons throughout his career.
He's had
Great
decent
weapons.
weapons, and Big Ben is never
Antonio
going to beat
Brown,
Brady.
Santonio Holmes,
Antonio Holmes
he had
He's had competent wide
Plexico
receivers.
Burris,
Yeah, competent wide receivers,
Jerome
and
Bettis,
Plaxico's not so competent. He shot himself in the leg.
Jerome
Okay,
Bettis.
yeah, Jerome.
He's
Yeah,
had
competent
great
players,
backs.
but he's never had a Brady. He never had a Gronk.
well going back to Bill Belichick, like we said, and how he dismisses players because we all know who the successor of Brady should have been in New England. To
Yeah,
boo
he
him
should.
out, and to keep Brady, and then to push Brady out to leave yourself with a rookie.
Yeah.
If you know about Jimmy G.
Mm. Justin, you seem to be having some audio problems. You may want to check your thing, but I think we're spending too much time on bad teams. Be honest with you.
Yeah, let's move
Okay,
forward.
let's move on to a better game that we needed to talk about, which was the Baltimore Pittsburgh game. Baltimore coming in at um, at 3-1, same record as I'm sorry, the Act 2-2 Pittsburgh, and they were favored to win, and they lost. Okay, are you still there, Justin? Do we still have you?
Yes, I am. I'm still
There you
here. I'm
go.
still
Now
here.
you sound much better. I'd like your take on this game. We'll get to Kory. I know we all know he's skewed one way or the other, but let's get yours first. How did you see this game, Justin?
Yeah,
Yeah, can you hear me?
I get you now. Yeah.
Okay. How did you see this game with the actual Pittsburgh game? How did you see it?
Well, I saw it as Pittsburgh stole this game, man. This game was quote. Well, let's start with this. Let's start with the quote unquote worst defense in the league. Come in and shut down. Excuse my language. But I'm just saying. But what
I
I'm
think that was a
saying,
shot at you, Kory.
yeah,
Numbers don't
it definitely
lie,
was because numbers don't lie. But
and
when I
their
say heart
rankings
don't
don't
lie,
lie. There's
clear
a
eyes, full
difference.
hearts can't lose. That's how I look at it. Clear eyes, full hearts can't lose. Right. This is not the best. This is not the best showing from Lamar Jackson. So uh, I can't really blame this fully on Lamar, but this is the best from him. I look at it
Yeah,
as Kenny
Justin, you're
Pickett
breaking
getting a
up. We're
bounce back
breaking
week
up.
after.
Hey, Kory, let me
Yeah,
go with you. What was your take on it?
Baltimore was set up to win, and they shot themselves in the foot. Lamar, I've never seen Lamar be more accurate in a game than this game. They had 7 dropped passes. 7. Nelson Aguilar had, well, we already know about his history from Philly. He has a ball placed right in his hands to put them up now from 10 to 17, and boom, right through his hands, right there. It would have been a touchdown. No questions asked. Drop pass. Zay Flowers, drop pass. Zay Flowers didn't know a play. Zay Flowers slips on his route because he gets turned around. 7 dropped passes in a game that were accurate are going to kill you. The defense needed to control TJ Watt and Alex Smith. It was like, oh, no, not Smith, Hightower. I think that's his name. He was all over the place doing whatever he wanted. We had great control, but once they got that safety, that changed the tide of the game. That safety gave that team, it sparked them. It was an ignition, and they went off. They were playing all over the place. They were swarming the ball, making the right plays. George Pickett showed up. Kenny Pickett looked decent. I'm gonna say, I won't say he looked great. He looked decent. And when you get a turnover and you're on the 6 or the 7, you have to come away with points. Justin just spoke about the field goals that Houston was putting up. At least a field goal would have helped. But
Hmm.
Lamar tries to throw that. I don't know if it was the back shoulder or if he was trying to throw a fade route to Odell against Joey Porter Jr. He put that ball in the worst position. He made Odell turn into a defender instead of a receiver at that time. And boom, you come away with no points. You shot yourselves in the foot. I have to admit it. We shot ourselves in the foot.
Well, I
They
think
have
you're
to be
putting
better.
too much on the wide receivers, although I admit the wide receivers dropped way too many passes. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. But I'm going to give some credit to Pittsburgh. They had a good defense. Watt is great. The secondary came up, they performed. Um and they played well. They played well. So I'm not going to put it all on the wide receivers, although the majority of this does fall on the wide receivers. They played atrocious, but they still lost the game at the end of the day. And now that's two
Mhm.
out of three, and they have a very tough road ahead of them. They are playing a middle of the road team next week and playing Tennessee,
Who plays good defense?
who plays very good defense, and they better bring their A game because they can't afford not to bring their A game against this. They can't fall to 3-3. They're supposed to be the elite in their division. At 3-3, they are not the elite.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important. Let's get to the next game. Next game will be Cincinnati against Arizona. Cincinnati finally has come around. They're playing. They look way better. Kory, talk to me what you saw.
I've been telling you guys this from the start of the season. Cincy starts off slow. Burrow is a November, December, January player. And it's the end of October almost. Well, not really, but he's turning around. It looks like that calf is healed. He had 36 completions, 317 yards, 3 TDs and INT. Mixon had 25 touches for 81 yards, which I think they really needed that. Chase, 15 catches, 192, 3 TDs.
Mm-hmm.
This is no T. Higgins. So teams should have known he was going to throw to Chase. So Chase should have been double teamed this
Yeah.
whole game. And they couldn't even stop him. I mean, Dobbs had 166, two TDs, 2 INTs. Connor only 46 yards. Marquise Brown showed up with 4 catches, 61 yards with a touchdown.
You know,
Um,
well, at the end of the day, Joe finally looked good. He shows that he probably should have done what he was told to do in the first place, which is to sit out the first 4 games. He wouldn't have looked this bad. We wouldn't have talked about this being as bad as it was. Now he's starting to get healthy, which is what they told him. By around week 5, he's going to start looking better. And he showed. Um, and Chase, he showed that he's always open. You
yeah,
know, he had
he's been
15
asking for the
receptions,
ball.
192 yards, 3 TDs. That's just insane. That was insane. Okay, but they are going to have a tough game next week against Seattle. That's going to be tough. I want to see how that's going to look. That'll let me know. Arizona, they're they're a hard. They're one of those teams that compete and they lose, right? And they're going against the Rams next week, and the Rams, uh, not to get too far ahead of myself, but the Rams got back their greatest weapon. So Arizona, it doesn't look like it's going to get much better than
But
what it's
is
been.
he? Is he?
Yeah, because he already showed
Oh
on his first game he can
man.
do it. Right now, um, Matt Stafford is like a kid with with 2 toys. He's happy and he's ecstatic because uh, this is going to be interesting to see what they do next week. All right.
Mm.
Philadelphia, Los Angeles. This was a good one because I knew this was going to be a good game going into it. Philadelphia, but like I said to you before, Philly does what good teams do. They win. When they need to win, they win. Hurts looked
Mm.
amazing.
Yeah,
Um, he just looked
303
amazing,
yards.
and their defense looked good because the Rams came. They came in here looking good.
I think the Rams record doesn't reflect the team. I think they're
No,
better than what their record
yep,
says.
I agree with you on that one.
As for Hurts, he looked great. He had 303 yards passing with a TD. He did throw a pick, but he also had 70 plus yards rushing with a touchdown. Swift had another 70. Brown and Goddard, 100 yards each. Stafford, 222 with a touchdown. And then your boy, Cooper Cup, 8 catches,
Mhm.
118. So he comes back, but
On his first
I'm,
game back.
I'm still sold on Puka.
I know. I'm still sold on him
I'm
too. I
still
just like
sold
the
on
fact
this
that
kid.
there's somebody else there, so it
It-
doesn't only have to be his show. So, I mean, we don't have to spend a lot of time in this game. This game is what it is. We knew what we had,
Mhm.
but it's something. I mean, Hurts is putting a hurting on the league. Hurts 300 yards passing, 72 yards rushing. Good luck trying to defend that.
Mhm.
And guess what? Next week they're going to go 6-0. They're going against the Jets. Period.
Ooh.
I'm calling it right now. They're going against the Jets. So that leads
Speaking of
us
that,
into the Jets. 2-3 Jets coming in. Actually, the one
yeah,
and three Jets at the time came in against
mm,
the 1-3 Denver Broncos. And I told you last week I was worried about this game. And I said I was worried about this game because of none other than Russell Wilson. Well, here we
Oh,
go. What did I say he had? He had a little bit of magic, didn't he?
right.
He made it interesting, Kory. He made it real interesting. Go ahead.
I think about what was it, 2 weeks ago? Or I was talking about that Jets defense showing up.
Mm-hmm.
If that Jets defense shows up, they are scary, scary, scary. Problem is the offense sputters. So that Jets defense comes out and gets four fumbles, and they lost four fumbles. No, they had four fumbles, but they recovered like six total. But the defense got recovered four because offense fumbled twice and recovered. So they turned those fumbles into points. They put their team in a position to win. That defense is one of the scariest defense when they're locked in. And the biggest play happened with Russell Wilson. He was running with that ball, but he wasn't protecting the ball when he was running at the end for that sack fumble. He had his hands down, out. He wasn't tucking the ball. It gets hit, and it changed the whole dynamic of the game.
Mm-hmm.
McLaughlin looked good, 9 carries, 68 yards, but I mean that's about it. But I mean Russell did look okay though. I will say that he did look all right.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm glad that the defense here. You know what the recipe was here? You don't have Rodgers. So you have one recipe for victory. And they actually used it this week. And it's what they should be doing every game as much as they can. What they have is they have a good defense. Let the defense play defense. And what they have is they have a very good running back in Brees Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Let them run. You should be running down everybody's throats as much as you can, as the best you can. They need to bring in um a little more usage of the rest of their running backs. You know who I'm talking
Yeah,
about,
Dalvin Cook
of course. But Brees Hall, 177 yards rushing,
on 22 carries. Yes.
177. Uh, Obviously he can run. That's the recipe. Run the ball, play good defense, win the games you can. Be as competitive as you can.
Mm-hmm.
You
I
know, that's why
agree.
Rodgers was such. This team has tools, and Rodgers was supposed to lead them. But the tools are still there. You just lost the leader. That's the only thing, you know?
All
So
Zach Wilson has to do is just manage the game.
manage,
He doesn't need
game
to have
manage.
spectacular games. He just
I
needs to
don't need him to be
manage the
Rodgers.
games.
Yeah, I don't need him to be Rodgers. You're 100% right. So that's where we are. All right. KC came in 3-1 against the 1-3 Minnesota Vikings. This game was the one that Marcella said, "You must be out your mind thinking that Minnesota was going to pull this out." And he was
But
right.
it was close.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Yeah.
I thought Minnesota was going to squeeze this one out, and they almost did it.
I don't
I
know
mean,
about almost did it. They did make it a little bit more interesting toward
they
the
made it a
end,
competitive game.
but
It
good
wasn't a
teams do what
blowout.
good teams do, Kory. Good
Yeah.
teams do what good teams do, and KC is a good team. And I'll tell you why I say that KC is a good team. Week 1 without Travis Kelce, they lost. And the primary reason why they lost is because without having his number one receiver, he didn't really know what to do. And I was talking about Mahomes when I said he. This has changed. He's becoming better and he has more confidence in his team, if you watch. Because when Kelsey went down with the ankle injury, it didn't deter him from doing what he was doing. Now, yes, it was against the Minnesota defense, but he's starting to have trust for other receivers. He found other receivers to throw to. He let Pacheco run the ball. They still were a solid offensive unit, and Kelsey came back. And when Kelsey came back, it was like he wasn't even missed. He just threw right to the touchdown, which that leads
Well,
us into something else. There were two big injuries in this game, and that's the biggest story about it. When Kelsey hurt his ankle and was out for a while, that was a little scary. But obviously, I think he's okay. He's still listed as questionable for next week, but he came back in the game, scored a touchdown, and he even played at the end of the game. He played defense at the end of the game. So I think they wouldn't have let him play defense if he was actually genuinely seriously hurt.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger
Agreed.
injury is what happened to Jeffries. Jeffries was having a Pro
The
Bowl
hamstring.
season.
Yeah.
He's having a Pro Bowl season, man. He's putting up stupid numbers, and now he's going to miss several weeks with this hamstring. I don't like that. I don't like it at all.
Neither do I, because Cousins is my fantasy quarterback, so neither
Yeah.
do I. Um, I disagree with one thing. I don't think Pacheco looked that great. He only had like 50 something yards. I think
Oh, he
both
doesn't have to look
teams.
that great. He's not uh Kareem Hunt back when they were running the
Right.
ball with Hunt. That's not his
Both
role. That's not his
both
game.
teams need to work on their run game. We know that. I mean, Mahomes
Yes.
and Cousins both look good. They both had like 280 yards each, both 2 TDs apiece. One thing that I will say you can't do is leave time on that clock for Mahomes right before
Mm-hmm.
the half. He's in his 2 minute drill. He is the best person after Aaron Rodgers that I've seen in
I
the
agree.
2 minute drill.
I agree. I
And
like Mahomes. And the kid's so young, man. We got so much to see him play. The sky's the limit. I was talking with someone today about it. We were ranking quarterbacks all the time, and I'm saying I can't put him there yet. He does not have the body of work that allows me to do that.
but he's got 2 Super Bowls already.
I know, but he doesn't have the body of work because he's only been here for a few years. He hasn't been here the amount of years that Rodgers and Brady and
Like 4 or
everyone else
5.
has put in yet. But if he continues to do what he's doing, there's no question that we're going to be discussing who's better, Brady or Mahomes, if he continues this going forward. So that's where we are with that. Now, what everybody thought was going to be the game of the week turned out to be the dud of the week.
The snooze.
Yeah, the snooze fest, because the 3-1 Dallas Cowboys came in to play the 4-0 San Francisco 49ers in what was supposed to be tops of the NFC. No, that's not. It was not even close. It was not even close. Now, I'm not writing off the Cowboys,
But
but
why not? They're
but I don't think putting them in the same breath as the 49ers does the 49ers any credit, because this was an absolute, in every facet of the game, the 49ers outplayed them, from coaching to passing to rushing to defense, to special teams, everything, every facet. Okay. The ball boys were better. The cheerleaders were cuter. The fans cheered harder. Everything about San Francisco outdid Dallas. And I'm going to be the first one to say it. It was Dak Prescott's fault.
3 interceptions.
I'm over it. I'm over him.
3.
I have him on my fantasy team. Believe it. You're going to see him on the waiver wire. I'm dropping him. Okay. I'm
Purdy.
done with him. I'm done with him. Seriously, I'm done with him, because this is a quarterback's league. We draft quarterbacks number one because it's the quarterback's league. You could have no running back, no wide receivers, no tight ends, but you have a Tom Brady, and every fan says, we got a shot,
Yeah.
because this is a quarterback-driven league. And Dak Prescott, a couple years ago, thought you had him as a steal coming out as a 4th-round draft pick. You get rid of Tony Romo, and I see the frustration of Dallas fans now. He's not the answer to me. I'm sorry. I'm ready to move on. Thank God I'm not a real true Dallas Cowboy fan, but I'm ready to move on. He's not producing. I felt bad for CD Lamb,
Yeah.
because because he was actually playing. He's got Brandon Cooks. This is a guy who's played under 19 different quarterbacks, and he's given, or every season he's 1,000-yard wide receiver. How many times do we have to excuse? We have to get excuse after excuse after excuse and blame every single person on this team, blame management, coaching, wide receivers, tight end coaches, everything. It's Dak, man. He's the common denominator. It's time to move on. Kory, tell me what you're thinking about that.
I might have to agree with you on all of that. I mean, Dak, when he's on, I don't think anyone can touch him when he's on.
But when is he
But
on?
it's once every 4 weeks or something like that.
That's not a winning
I
recipe
know
for
it's
me.
not a winning recipe at all. I feel really bad for CeeDee Lamb. He's a phenomenal receiver, and he's not getting enough touches. You're correct about Brandon Cooks because I was just looking into that like 2 days ago.
How
What's
about
going on
Gallup?
with this guy?
Any
Michael
team would love
Gallup,
to have him as a number 3. Any team.
not even. He could be a number 2 in some
Yeah.
places.
And you also have
Pollard is
Pollard.
not getting enough. He's not getting enough love. You
Let's
can't
blame everybody but Dak. Come on.
put it on that defense. That defense is a good defense, but San Francisco was a buzzsaw. My boy, who I claim was the weakest offensive link, and I
Mhm.
still stand by it, but I don't mean it with disrespect because I actually ran into a Niners fan while I was shopping, and I told him I think he's the weakest link, but that's a good weak link. Purdy, 252. He had like what 17 completions, 24 dropbacks with 4 touchdowns, and then they had 2 more rushing touchdowns. That's 6 offensive touchdowns that this team just unleashed on you. I mean, the backup running back, 10 carries, 69 yards with a touchdown. CMC, 19 carries, 51 yards with a touchdown. What else? The backup came in and
Mhm.
was thrashing you guys. Kittle had one of his better games of the season. The fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, who is also an ex-Raven, just so you know, came in and
Oh
had a
boy.
touchdown. Hey man, I told you I'm a fan, but you can't put this one on the defense at all.
No,
They
not
were
at all.
going against a high-powered offense that is a well-oiled machine. They know what to do. Purdy's great in the system. This falls on Dak because everyone expected this to be somewhat of a shootout.
Yeah.
Dak didn't show up
No,
with the
Dak stood
weapons he
home.
had.
Dak stood
Yeah,
home. Well, that's what we get. And unfortunate, like it it steals the energy away from how great of an offensive team San Fran is. We should be talking about what CMC is doing. We should be talking about what Brock Purdy's doing. But instead, we're talking about how bad Dak is.
and I
That's what we're
love
talking
Mike
about.
McCarthy, their head coach. I
Yeah,
love them in
I
Green
mean, like
Bay.
we look at every tool that they have and we say, "Oh, that's a great tool. I'd love to have it," except for that. So, time to move on. That led us to Monday night. And Monday night game. Okay, so here's
Oh
here's
boy.
here's how I thought about it. Right. So we've got a a weird game because you got a 2-2 Green Bay coming against 1-3 Vegas. Right. So you know how most guys we want to go out to uh to watch Monday Night Football with our friends, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes you just have to you have to chalk it up and say, I got to go to work on Tuesday, and I got a tough day on Tuesday morning. Maybe I should just go to sleep tonight. This was that game. This was that game that you could do that because you didn't miss anything. If you missed the game, you'd miss nothing. This was not, I mean, it was close. Don't get me wrong. Vegas had a nice, if you did catch the game, it was entertaining because Vegas was down in the fourth quarter and they came back to win the game. So it was okay. But you know what? This is two teams that I think are going to, at the end of the season, we're not talking about them. We're not even talking about them going to the playoffs, right? Because
Mm.
now, okay, because now they're both 2-3. Uh, they don't look great. Garoppolo did not look great. He looked okay. Love did not look great. He looked okay. In fact, he looked less than
Okay.
okay. Less than okay. You don't give me a chance to correct myself, sir. He looked less than okay. So neither teams inspire me of a great hope of future playoff implications at all. At all. They're both mediocre. Teams played very sloppy. Best thing I could point out when I was looking at the stats, because thank God I did not stay up to watch this game. I caught the highlights the next morning. But the best thing I could say is that we at least got to see that Devontae Adams is back. He's going to play going forward. I was very worried about him. He looked good. He didn't look great, but he looked good. Jacoby Myers played well. So, with that being said, they're going to get another win next week because they're going against New England.
Well, I mean, we don't know
I know.
because these two
I
teams
think.
to me are just bad teams. I mean,
Yeah.
just say I feel bad for Devontae Adams for being on that team.
Hmm.
I don't think Green Bay should have ever traded him. That's just me
Yep.
saying. But I mean, people were talking about Jordan Love at the beginning of the season. And I told you, you can't be a good quarterback throwing 50-50 at going 50%. He was 16 for 30, 182, 3 interceptions. And I mean, I watched a little bit of the game and his passing was way off. I, my little niece could throw better passes than him.
Hmm.
The way he was throwing, her accuracy was better.
Yeah.
Dylan, he had 76 yards with a touchdown. Good. I'm glad to see that because I think um, the current running back he didn't play. Oh man, it slips my mind too.
Yeah.
Christian
And he's
Watson,
on
3 catches,
my fantasy league, and
91.
I left him in because I thought he
Mm,
was a play. He was a last minute scrub.
yeah. Christian Watson, 391. We got to see Josh Jacobs emerge just a bit. 20
He
carries,
really,
69 yards, a
yeah, I'm
touchdown.
saying, do you really say he emerged? He played against Green Bay and only put up 69.
But it's one of his better showings of the season for a guy who led the league, what, two seasons ago or last season? I think it was last season he led the league in rushing.
Yeah.
So,
I would have liked to have seen more out of him, though.
I'm still not sold on Jimmy G. I've never been sold on Jimmy G. I just want
I
everyone to
was.
know
I
that
was when he
even when
was
he
in
was a
New England.
Patriot, never sold on Jimmy
No,
G.
I think it would have been a whole different thing if Belichick would have been allowed to do what he wanted to do, which is to move on from Brady, um, with his hand-picked replacement in Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G would have thrived in that Belichick system. Now he's bounced around a few times and he can't seem to. He has talent, but he can't seem to catch on the way he needs to. So I think that's what you're going to get without the perfect system for him. You're not going to get what you need.
I mean, he was in San Francisco. I think he was just a game manager. He had some real good
That's what
games,
he
and then
is.
he would just have mediocre games. That's why I've never been
That's what he
sold on
is,
the
though.
guy.
That's what he is.
Brock Purdy, I'm sold on. Jimmy G, I'm not. Jimmy
Well, I
G is
tell you what.
just a
At least he gets
part-time
to
running
go
back.
back and hug Belichick next week. Green Bay, they get the much needed rest that they need next week. They're on bye. So that
Okay.
okay. So Kory, lastly, before we close out the show, I want to give the fantasy managers
Waivers.
out here
Mm.
some optimism, something to go for waiver wire. Okay, and only because he had technical difficulties and he had to go. Justin sent me his waiver wire picks, which I agreed with him. So I'm not even going to mention. Yep, I'm going to go with the same one that he had. Let me tell you who everyone should be trying to target if you can. Logan Thomas of the Washington Commanders. He's
I
only
agree with that one.
rostered on 3% of the league. He put up 77 yards and a TD. And going forward, be prepared to see him get a little bit more love. Matt Stafford is another one. I'll tell you what, Matt Stafford, I know that sounds like somebody who, what, Matt Stafford? Yeah, he's only rostered on 52% of leagues out there. And he's already quietly having a very good season. He's got Piku, but he just got back his top weapon, man. He just got back Cooper Cup. So between the two wide receivers, I want to see what he can do going forward. So if you're in need of a quarterback and Matt Stafford is sitting on the waiver wire, grab him up, man. Grab him up. Kory, you got somebody for me?
I do have somebody for you. Adam Thielen. He looks like he is now the Panthers' number one guy.
You mean number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 because they have nobody else?
Hey, they still got 2 running backs. He's he's on 82% of the rosters now. I think people picked him up because he's been
he's on mine. He's on my team.
And you just picked him up recently, I'm a feeling.
Yeah, I picked him up about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I saw it coming.
See? Yeah. If you haven't picked him up, go grab him. He's a number 1 receiver now. He's going to get a lot more touches. And he's always been a good receiver. He's never been a bad receiver. He just dealt with a couple injuries, and then the emergence of Justin Jefferson over in Minnesota, but now over in Carolina, he's the guy.
Yeah.
He's an aging receiver, yes, but he is the guy for right now.
Still going to give you 20 points a game.
Yeah, pick him up if you can.
All right. You got anyone else for me? Because I have a couple more if you don't.
Just Jaleel McLaughlin on the Broncos. It looks like he's taking over the workload. You mentioned him, I think, last week.
I did mention him last week, and people are not listening because he's only rostered on 11% of the leagues out there. And he's got 3 TDs in 5 games. No, he's not a superstar running back for you. But I tell you what, if you're in a 12 to 14 team league like ours, the waiver wire is slim pickings. So you grab whatever you can grab up, and this is a guy who you can throw in if your running back's on bye or if they get injured. But I'll give you one more that might be worth grabbing up if you can. Deontay Foreman, rather. I'm sorry, Deontay Foreman. I think he's a must grab if you had Khalil Herbert. He's going to be out for multiple weeks with his ankle injury. So with that being said, he's going to get some love over there. So I would grab him up if you can. And one more, the Jags defense only rostered on 17%, and I can't understand why they're only rostered on 17%. 5 interceptions, 6 fumble recoveries in 5 games. That's 11 total takeaways. You're going to get points with the Jags defense.
That's a good defense to pick up if you got that.
That's a great defense. They play very well. They actually do sacks and they do takeaways.
I've been telling you guys that they're tough, man.
They're tough teams. So if you're in, if you thought that if you thought that your defense was going to be good and you ended up with the Broncos defense, maybe you might think about dropping them and picking up that Jags D. So that's where I am. Kory, you got anything more for me?
No, sir. I think we covered it all today.
Tell these lovely folks how you feel about them. And
hey, I want to thank all of you. We're trying to get this to get off the ground. And whoever's watching out there and listening, I want to thank you. Please spread the word. Spread it around to everyone you know. We're going to bring you the real hard facts, the real hard truths. That's what we do here. We're not holding, well, I mean, I have a little bit of bias for the Ravens, but we're not holding too much bias over here. But thank you once again.
I know that Justin has some technical difficulties, and I know he would want me to tell you thank you for listening. Y'all, please share this. If you've looked at the production, you've seen that we're getting better week after week. We're giving you quality, and it's getting better, and it's only going to get better. So share, like, subscribe. Let your folks know about it. Okay, let your pastor know about it. Because we need to get everybody on board with us. So, as always, let's keep it from the hip. We love football and we love you. Thank you, everyone.